Hello, everybody. Welcome. I know this might be surprising, but in fact, the match has been played. So, I am just going to look at those games and analyze them and look what happened there. So, I actually already have played Kamsky. And it was kind of an impromptu match. That's what I put in the title. Probably I should fix it. Probably will rename it My Match versus Gata Kamsky game analysis. Now, there were really good games and matches, and there were not really good ones. But, for the sake of the whole match, I'm going to take a look at all of them because that's how you look through those games. You don't skip, look at games that you like, you didn't like. That's how you look at critical moments. So, let's take a look. Here, my games. View the games. View games. Yeah, so this was a 10 game match. Let's start with this one. Yeah, so this is the beginning. We're gonna do an analysis board. Take a look. So, I played e4. That is the most classical way of playing. And Kamsky plays e5. He was actually going for 2800. Not, you know, um, it's a fair game, I think. You do your best. He was actually at this moment when we played at 2789, kind of ringing bells because I did have the same score not long ago when I was trying to get there to 2800. So now I'm paired against Kamsky. And he goes e5, which is reasonable. Knight c3. I'm actually attempting to play this line against Kamsky, getting this line in. This queen d3 line that I played before and played by Dubov. But he doesn't give me this chance. Hello, Dritti. How are you? Hello, Vampire Chicken. He actually plays bishop c5. There are actually some funny lines here. If you go knight a4, here's a funny line of bishop takes f2, king takes, check, king here, and if I'm correct, queen f4 and d5, because this knight is awkward. Your king is not ideally placed, not at all. So I knew this is a possibility, but I didn't want to go into that anyways. Just played bishop c4. This is actually kind of the hype that was played by Nakamura in recent years. White is actually playing AK like Alakine style with d3 f4. I'm going to play it a little bit differently though. So d6. Can you see? I don't know if you can see. As I'm playing Kamsky at that moment. So d6, d3, knight f6, and normally f4 is the move. This is the move, although that's with knight c6. So maybe knight g4 is a problem here. I'm not 100% sure. Knight g4, f5, and if knight f2, I have this move. What's the point of g6, queen h6, takes the knight takes the rook. I guess bishop g5. Maybe this is the point g6. Here takes bishop g5. Just to stop any tricks. And if f6 here, knight d5 threatening knight c7 and knight f6. Both looking pretty tough to deal with. Anyways, I didn't want any of that. Click on h3. Stopping this knight g4 ideas, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go f4 immediately. I'm kind of, giving the idea that I might switch it up. Bishop e6, queen f3. So I'm going for this direction of knight e2. So if black takes dc castles knight e2. And even though this looks like a subpar position, white will go bishop g5, pin, and maybe have some chances on the king side later on. Good question if that actually will happen. However, that's idea. Knight c6. But here I realized knight e2 isn't ideal because that would run into knight b4 and that c2 pawn is very hard to defend. Hello, Kasper. Looking through my games against Kamsky that we just played recently and randomly. So I didn't want to fall for this one. Play bishop b5. We sort of get into a weird Spanish-like structure. Yep, the famous legend, yes. Bishop b5, so I'm just pinning it. h6. Probably wasn't too keen on seeing bishop g5. Probably takes bishop g5. Even though it's not a big deal. Black always has h6 and g5. I don't think it's too bad. Go here. Can even go into this endgame. I'm not saying that white is worse, but I think black is okay as well with the bishop pair. Maybe some strategical masterpieces can linger there, but I don't think so. I don't really think so. He played h6, which makes sense, but I think is a little slow. Knight e2, just covering, and now as this is pinned, at d7, a3. I could have taken, but somehow I didn't feel like doing that. Felt like keeping it more like the Spanish type of position. On a3, knight d4, takes, bishop e3. And bishop e3 was probably a bad move. And it's time to be objective here. Bishop e3, even though it looks very nice, I don't think it's that good. Why? Because you'll see, first off, you'll see why. Two, probably knight e2 would have been better, hitting the bishop and just taking control of the f5 square. c6 I can drop back. And now you see the problems I face. That queen a5 check is not so harmless after all. Beginners saying queen g3. Yeah, but that kind of, I don't know. It's a move. It's definitely a move, but I guess just queen f6, defending. Most of my pieces are still kind of scattered, which is not good. Shouldn't be that scattered. I went bishop e3, even though I think knight e2 is better. Could run into c6 though. Problem so far is that there's this queen a5 check winning the bishop. There's no knight c3 because bishop takes c3. So I played bishop e3, but this is a bad move. It's already very bad. And probably Kamsky wanted to get the advantage too early on. I think next move is good, but then the idea that he had was a little bit flawed. And then it won't be easy and there'll be many ups and downs. However, what he did was a little dubious. But first, let's try to find out what Kamsky did. Ten games. We're gonna take a look through 10 games. Knight b3. I'm not gonna spoil the end result of the match. Okay, yeah, c6 makes sense. However, Kamsky took here first, c6, which is good. And here I realized to my horror that bishop a4, queen a5, and I'm losing the whole board, which is not good. Don't lose the whole board, it's not healthy. Hello, Travis. So I went for this terrible bishop c4, takes, and here I think he made a big mistake. Now, mind you, he was already trying to get to 2800, so he's at 2789. So probably he felt that, hey, if he wins this game, he gets really close to clinch his goal. Then his next move is probably played because of that. Tiger Top, thank you for the follow. So he went queen a5, which by in itself is not a bad move per se, but it goes for pawns that I'm more than willing to give up. I don't really care for those pawns. And I castled, of course. I'm just giving up those pawns. Here, of course, he should have castled. Here, queen e7, and sooner or later, these pawns will be too weak and probably gonna fall. But he went for queen a5, and I think that was not a great idea. So I castled. Take my pawn, please. Queen c3. And here's some important moves here. Played rook d1. Just immediately counterattacking. Knight b6. And the next move is important. Let's try to find white's next move. Maybe he was confident he calculated this one, but missed my move here. Why not rook f d1 instead of rook d1? Well, because I don't want this rook to be hanging. And this rook can be useful, maybe on the f file. I mean, if you take on b6, we get into an endgame that you wouldn't want. You're down a pawn. That's not a good deal. Well, yeah, if they take, I'm still down a pawn, but we don't want to be down a pawn. Not shockingly. So c5. I'm going to give up the pawn, but that's not the main point. I'm taking away this idea of knight takes c4. Probably was hoping for something like this, and then he can long castle, and he's just doing fine. More than fine. c5. Now, if you just do this, I can take on d6, and I get some counterplay. So he took, but once he took, I have an important little Zwischenzug that makes this position interesting. And that's queen g4. I put pressure there. You can't castle. And you can't castle nor short nor long. Which makes it interesting. If you castle short, there's bishop h6 and you're losing the exchange. I'd even go for mating attacks. Apart from that, your king is in the middle, your knight and queen is a little bit misplaced. That's nothing good. g6. Now we have to find a good plan though. Thank you for the follow, Wasim. So always consider what your opponent is trying to achieve. What is black trying to achieve? If you figure that out, then you know what to do as white in this position. Yeah, black really wants to castle. So you should look for a move that stops that idea or at least hinders it. So I played queen h4. Point being, if you ever castle or think about it, I'll immediately get my queen on f6. So that's not an idea. And sometimes there's this idea of king f8, king g7. So if you go slow poking, then oftentimes black can go king f8, king g7. Not that this is not dangerous for black. However, if the king manages to get to g7, there's some play. Actually, it's even better to go queen c4 and maybe even queen e6, which looks ugly, but it's not that bad. So queen h4, queen c4, again a very good move. Queen f6, rook h7. And now we should decide what to do. Again, let's go with the same route. What is black trying to achieve to what would be our goal? So black wants to get the king out of the center, but how would you do that? Probably with getting the queen to e6. So if this queen comes back, then there's some hopes for black to survive. So we don't want that at any cost. You don't want Kamsky's king to run away. Yeah, rook d6, very nice. Just taking away this square, and then I want to go queen e5. Knight d7. Not wanting to give up the e5 pawn. Boom! It was time to sacrifice. Because these rooks are scattered, and all of my pieces are sort of ready to attack. Takes d7. King takes d7, and here I think I made a mistake. Here I made a mistake. This already looks very nice. So I have a minute 14 seconds to, I think it's 52 or 30? No, 52 seconds. So here I should have spent even more time. The next move is very nice. I think I played queen e5 myself. Hello, Vimparta. The next move is very deep, and that's what should have happened. Yep, I did. I did. Chess geek. So again, the big threat is queen e6. Now if black manages to neutralize the attack, then we're done for. Then white can't hope for anything and probably is objectively lost. I don't think we might have Vimparta, I don't know. Yeah, so should have played rook b1. Point being, queen e6 doesn't work because I have takes. Here, takes, rook takes h7. And with these terrible pieces, and I'm up a rook, a bishop, almost also a rook because that is cornered. Yeah, you get the rook into the attack, but it's not that trivial. It looks trivial, like the position looks so simple. However, rook b1 would have been good in the sense if you play b6. Now I check, and no longer do you have defenders of that c6 pawn. You go here, you get checkmated. If you go here, you lose the rook. So probably the best is for black to go king e8, king f8, but even there, I feel that there's lots of play for white, even if that's not necessarily decisive. So I played rook d1 check. That was bad. Here, check. And unfortunately, I missed this simple idea of queen e7, which is ridiculous, but that's what happened. Queen e7, Queen a5. And, yeah, bishop takes c5 is still a threat, though. That is still a threat. b6, queen a4. Still kind of annoying him a little bit. Hello, Shark. And I think here, Kamsky was just a move away from consolidating. Well, maybe consolidating is a bit too much, an exaggeration, but pretty close to get a stable advantage. I think he should have played something like queen e6, just defending the pawn. He defended it this way, but this was a mistake, and now I've got the momentum back. Mario Sud, thank you for the follow. Why to move and get the initiative? Hey, Casper, subscribed with a tier 1 sub for 2 months. 2 downs, many more to go. Appreciate it. Welcome back. Shark, thank you for subscribing with a tier 1 sub. Whoa. Yep. Bishop f4. Hello, hello. Yep, bishop f4. And this was a pleasant moment for me, because not only am I up like 10 seconds on Kamsky, also he has to deal with this move. Pretty sure he missed it. If takes, I have queen takes c6 check, and I take the rook, and I have a raging attack. And after queen b7 comes the big idea of bishop f4, which is... yes, yes. Why did we play bishop f4 in the first place? Well, the king is not happy on e8. King is not happy there. So let's keep it there for a longer period. Bishop d6. Just making sure that king can't walk to g8. If the king would walk to g8, then indeed, then my position would be very bad. But after bishop d6, I was very confident that this attack is very tough. f6. And one of those things that you learn when you're young is that once you get the initiative and you're on the roll, you must never stop. e5. So before Kamsky could have the time to reorganize, I start rolling with my pieces. fe. Do we take it back? Do we take that pawn? Nope, we don't take that pawn. We actually centralize the queen. This bishop does a good job restricting the black pieces. Also, I have pressure on c6 and g6. King f7, rook d3, just mounting in. Rook g7, and before he could get his king away, queen c4 check, king e8, queen e6, and here he resigned, which is completely understandable. If you move the king away, you just get mated. Check, double check. If you go here, check, check, checkmate. And if you play anything else like rook e7, I take, and I take the rook. Check. So this was the first game. That was a very, very good start for me against Kamsky. So 1-0. 9 games to go. Well, was it a good game? So some parts was well played. Not all of them. I really should have played rook b1, should have spent more time on that. Also, he had a big advantage if he castled. But I do appreciate the compliments. Thank you, Berlin Chess. Let's take a look and look at game 2. Okay. So this is game 2. e4, g6, d4. So it's very difficult to decide what to play exactly. Um, Kamsky's obviously was a top player. So it shouldn't surprise you that he knows everything of everything. So I decided this time we're going to play the modern. It's true, Chess Geek, that's a good point. Once you get the first game, it sets up for the rest. Kind of, but, you know, you're not playing a newbie, you're playing Kamsky. So g6, bishop g7, c3. And c3 is a solid move and is very interesting. However, pretty sure knight c3, f4 is the best try, the so-called Austrian attack. And that would have been the best shot for him. He goes c3, which kind of goes into his style. He likes these slow grinding positions. When was this played, Trevis? Just a few moments ago. So I played a 10-game match, an impromptu 10-game match against Gata Kamsky. So I'm going to take a look at all of those games from the good, the bad, and the ugly. They'll be ugly ones, sadly, but what to do? So d6. I don't want to go c6, d5 because that's what white is hoping for. White is hoping to just kill the scope of my bishop. And on g7, that bishop won't really enjoy its time. It'll have very, very bad time there. So just go d6. I want to break it open with e5. Knight f3, knight c6, sort of a provocation, but Kamsky is not provoked. Knight f6, bishop d3, castle, castle, e5, rook e8, rook e1, rook e8. Maybe I should have played h6, just stopping this bishop g5 idea, and then it would be a good question what Kamsky would do next. If he would go d5, knight e7, then we get some sort of a King's Indian position, which white has a weird bishop on d3. So if anything, I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's definitely playable. Played rook e8, but bishop g5 was a very nice move. Pinning my queen, and also keeping the tension. So what Kamsky is saying when he chooses this line, he wants to get a Ruy Lopez, a Spanish position against me, and wants to slowly grind away. h6, bishop h4, always keep the tension, bishop d7, and here, according to the engine, I made a mistake. Here I had the choice of taking with d4, which I didn't honestly consider as an opportunity, because you never really see this one. And if c takes d4, try to guess white's main issue. What is the main issue here? So don't forget, you're still pinned. You don't want to lose the lady just quite yet. Yeah, so g5, g5, which is an ugly move. Very positionally, this is very ugly. Now taking is an idea most positions, but not here because the d4 pawn is hanging, and then you don't even have enough material left. So bishop g3 and maybe knight h5, hitting both places, or even g4, because this d4 is going to be rather weak. Brilliances, thank you for following. I'm actually curious. It says knight h5 is pretty good because you hit this bishop and you have pressure. It's kind of surprising because normally these don't work out in black's favor, but I have so much pressure and there's still 2 moves for Kamsky to develop that my position is actually alright. More than alright. I have enough play here. But I didn't do it. That didn't even cross my mind that I could take on d4. So played bishop d7, knight d2, queen c8, just moving away from this pin, de, and maybe in hindsight I should have taken with the knight. Takes and de, and probably I'm slightly worse because this bishop is not ideal, but it's not like the end of the world. Maybe I can just go b6, taking cover of these squares, and then just hold the fort. Maybe even knight h5, knight f4 is an idea. However, there's bishop f1, and it's just much easier to navigate this position. What if the rook takes? Well, if the rook takes, then white has an extra pawn in the center, and that never means good. So I took with the pawn here, knight c4, knight h5, kind of setting up some aggressive plans. Bishop f1, and well, in some ways this position reminds me of the Reti with reverse colors, and there the next move makes sense. However, in this specific case, this wasn't too good. The move what I played isn't good, and that's kind of the tragedy of this position. This bishop on g7 is bad, but it is pretty important. I played bishop f6 and was probably a terrible move. This bishop, even though passive, it does defend the e5 pawn. Should have looked for something else. Wonder what. Curious what the computer thinks. Computer says bishop e6, knight d3, knight d5. Knight e7. You can feel that all of these moves just feel wrong. Like you have this position and you're struggling. And knight f4, yeah, but knight f4 doesn't really do anything. There's no threats. And this is the typical position that Kamsky liked. Merville, thank you for following. Really likes. You have no counterplay, a terrible bishop. He's just going to go rook d1, b4, a4, knight d5, and slowly you're going to go down. I didn't want this. I went bishop f6 instead, which I thought is reasonable. I want to exchange off this terrible bishop, but it turns out it's not just bad, because you lose a defender. Takes 6, b4, and suddenly it's very hard to deal with this threat of the knights, and knight d3, knight d5 is coming, and the h6 pawn is hanging. There's nothing really good here. Yes, this was a blitz match, Gyodor. Busy Mizzy, thank you for the follow. Played a6. I think that is the best I can do. a4, bishop e6. Yeah, so here, at this moment, I realized that, hey, I really have to do something. If I'm just sitting and waiting, b5 is coming, they're going to take all my pawns, and this is just a bad position. So bishop e6, knight e5, and now it's time for you to show your tactical chops, people. And sometimes, tactics doesn't mean you win the game, but it does mean that you get a little bit of hope in the position. was black to move and come up with some tactical shots. So boom, of course, knight takes e5 is the first move. And bishop takes h3. Hitting this knight on e5. However, this isn't as beautiful as you want to see when you're playing black, because he has this very nice little counter sacrifice of knight takes f7. At least I thought that this is bad for me, and indeed it is pretty bad. Computer is actually saying king f7 is best, but I'm down a pawn with a miserable position, so I don't want that. I played bishop takes g2, just complicating matters. Bishop takes g2, knight h6, king g7 takes, and now this is ugly, but this is not as ugly as before. So let's take a look from this position. So in this position, you are hopelessly lost positionally. This positionally ain't good. Not sure, Joe. I have no idea. This is positionally hopeless. You go bishop e6 takes here. Is this worse and near lost? Yes, it is. However, yeah, bishop g4 doesn't work. I was hoping that it would. Really doesn't, because there's this knight h6 check, and I'm losing everything. Takes, king takes, e5, knight h5, and yes, I'm lost. However, strategically, my knight will provide me some sorts of counterplay in this position. Queen d2, and here I was at odds, couldn't decide if I should go king g7 or king h7. Not sure myself. In fact, so not sure I'm going to ask you this question. Now, there's positives and negatives for both. If you put the king on h7, oftentimes you run into bishop e4 and queen g5, queen takes h5. However, the knight can go to g7 and maybe blockade. Or you can go king g7, then you don't have these knight maneuvers anymore, and if you get checked, that will be the end of you. You don't have no ways to blockade. Hey, Lawrence. So I was wondering which way to go, and to be honest with you, I felt I'm trying to be more defensive. And maybe king h7 gets me a little bit more counter chances against Kamsky. But do we care? Yes, we care. We care where the king goes. We definitely do. At least I did, because I tried not to lose the game. And, okay, so here, actually, oh, you meant about knockout. Okay. So king g7 I didn't like. Also e6 you do run into some ideas, which would have been pretty nasty. So I did go king h7. So I have this knight g7 idea just to block. Rook d8, rook e7. Now, let's be totally clear. This position is still terrible for black. But I already have some fighting chances, and if I manage to get my guys in, then I'll be doing fine. Oh, dead heat in the poll. Whoa. Hey, thank you for subbing with Twitch Prime. Nice hat, thank you. Also, hope you're doing well. Haven't heard of you since 2 days ago, I guess. So I wonder what was the better move. Oh, it wants g5. Wow. You're not good at this game, RB. He wants to go knight f4. Wow, that's impressive though. And then it gets messy, however. As you can see by the computer, this is still pretty bad because my king is naked. And that's no good. That ain't no good. So okay, I still say king h7 is the most practical. King h7, rook e7. The computer hates me, but I don't want to get checked on the 7th. That's just a fact. e6, queen f8. So I have a terrible position, but I'm hoping to do and create some play over there. Queen g5, probably too positional. Should have taken on b7. Queen g5, c6. Now it's not that bad. It is still terrible, but not as bad as it should be. What should he play here? He did play bishop e4, knight f4. Again, he plays this well. Takes. Here, queen f6. Oh, and actually this was the moment that probably bamboozled him just a little bit. It seems like I'm completely lost, and I am. But there's no mate. No mate on the position, and he kind of burned all his time here trying to find a win. And oftentimes, best strategy is no win, no problem. Just take the pawn and look around. So this is definitely what he should have done. He took, which was not a good move. Takes, a5. Already, I'm not that much worse. Still bad, but not that much worse. I have a knight. The king is not entirely safe. Still good. They played a5. My point is, I want to get counterplay, whatever cost. b5, cb, rook b5, rook d8, going for activity. But now, I just get counterplay. However, my opponent has no time. Holding, rook b7. And now we've got to be precise here. If he gets bishop b7, a5, a6 in, we're doomed. Let's try to find a bit of a counterplay. Come on, people. Ideas, ideas. So the threat is a5, a6. You've got to do something, and you're also pinned. So you've got to stop this pin from bothering you, and also you've got to stop a5, a6. So I took on b7, takes, rook b6, hitting this bishop and going behind the pawn. Bishop e4, rook a6, knight d5, rook a5, and already I'm not that lost anymore. Rook c5, takes, here, and then time. But, yeah, now this is bad though. Bad again. But if I didn't defend, probably wouldn't have gone this far. Obviously, sadly, this was time. Yes. You should be attempting at 2 a.m. No, you shouldn't. Yeah, so obviously he was winning, but he should have gone for rook takes b7 earlier on just to clean it off as quickly as possible. So now this meant I'm up by 2 points because my opponent timed out. There's the other game. Okay, so this game. This game actually was my strongest and where I messed up. So now it's 2-0 for me in the match. And obviously it's a blitz match on Lichess. Went e4 again. I succeeded before with this one with a nice attack. So I felt, why not go it for it again? g6, knight c3, and g3. g3 kind of a peculiar choice. I'm going for a slow burner. We transpose back to this system. 5 knight e2. And what's actually hilarious is that he played this exact same line against Giri. So Kamsky Giri, not long ago. And don't even guess the result. He won in like 80 moves or something. With white. So I played this knight e2 system. The point is you want to start rolling with f4, g4 and go for the attack. So d6, castle e5, knight d5, bishop e6. Now it's time to go aggro, people. It's time to go aggro. f4. Let's go. And here I think he makes a move which is fine-ish, but it just is not ideal. And here comes the big question. You're gonna get question number 2. How should white capture the pawn back? So whenever you look at a position, you've got to check what's going on. Who's more developed? Is it white, black? What's going on? And if you realize and you notice the difference between the two kings, then you'll find which way to go. Well, yeah, you decide which knight. It's your discretion. And of course, knight e4. Yeah, e takes f4. Pressure there, and black is 2 moves away from castling, and that'll take a lot of time. If you take with the pawn, black can just go knight f6, castle next, and if Kamsky castles here, he's okay. Knight f4, I'm threatening knight takes e6. If you go here, I take, knight f6. And I just have too many guys lurking around the king. This is just not tenable. So he took knight d5, h6. h6 is kind of against ideas of bishop g5. But now you have to hit the iron while it's hot. Pawn takes? Yeah, pawn takes is not good. So we went queen f3. Threatening this pawn. Knight e5, queen f2, rook b7. Bishop f4, and you still don't have knight e7 because bishop e5 and you lose the pawn. Yeah, queen f3 is a good move. Knight g4. And here we kind of messed with Kamsky. I played here, knight e5, queen f2, just asking, do you want to draw? And he said, of course I'd love to draw, but you are developed. You're one move away from getting in the rook. Why would I really want to draw? No. Queen e2. You've got to go for it. You've got to go for it. Queen e2. Knight e5. And it's time to come up with a plan here. We already know what black is trying to do. So you've got to stop Kamsky from castling. Played c3. Preparing d4, d7, d4, takes, knight c6. Probably, however, this wasn't the most accurate. I should have gone a4. Just try to provoke some weaknesses and then start rolling with c3, d4. d4, takes, knight c6. Now, we've got to go for it. How can we go for it here? e5, yes. e5. We're going for it. de. However, unfortunately, if knight e7, there will always be knight takes d4 ideas and rook takes c7, and suddenly I'm completely lost. Good point, Bernie. I mean, look, you can only use your brain while you're playing chess. Yeah, I definitely think that the more you think with your head, the better you become. And here's a little bit of an anecdote. So I've seen Ray Robson analyze. And I had looked at some positions with an engine and gave it to him and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or like position. And he would just give lines and analysis, and his lines would be just so much better than the computers would mention. Because he used his head. That's why. So I do agree with you. I think it makes sense to use your head and then use the engine to kind of calibrate how far you're from like the truth, like the big truth of the position, or if your idea makes sense. So here I notice that if I take, then there's knight d4 and I'm done for. So I've got to go all in yet again. Although, just notice that this rook is still in danger. So if you see that rook is still in danger, then there's one big move, and that was bishop takes e5. Black can still take because there's bishop g7 checks and problems. So Kamsky took de, and there's no castles because there's knight f6 check and bishop takes b7. Knight takes d5. So from a very good position, this becomes extremely complicated. Now you're down a piece. Black is a move away from castling. We've got to go aggro. Channel your tall, people. Queen f3, probably there's rook d7 defending the knight, and I'm not sure I'm convinced. Never offer a draw. Rishadan, never offer a draw. e6, e6, interesting. e6, probably, isn't there a check, queen e6? Here, check, here, queen takes e6. If you take, you're down a piece. If you don't, black is just going to castle. It could be like a funny line like this. Here, castle, takes, rook d7. You go here, no biggie. Just double up. Not even sure if this is the best line, but could be. Yeah, so this is pretty good. Yeah, castle's good, but even this one is great. Rook takes f7, then there's rook takes f7. That could work in other cases, but the rook is over defending that square. Then rook d1. Pressing, and Kamsky is still a move away from castling. Persian, thank you for following. Rook d7, queen b5. And suddenly, most of my guys are still kind of lurking around his king. Thank you for the follow, Rishadan. Queen b6, trying to clarify. And I think clarifying wasn't the best, was it? Anyways, clarified, takes, bishop c6, king e7, and unfortunately, I saw the solution, but the wrong order. And that was probably a big mistake on my part. This is already very good for me. However, I should have spent a bit more time. So I have 45 seconds here. It's white to move to win. Rishadan, no problems. Thank you for the cheers. It's all bridge underwater. No worries, no worries. It's white to move and win. So don't offer me one move explanations. Just imagine you're playing against Kamsky. Bridge under the water. Yes, thank you, Casper Blood. My bad. And this was a heavy miss. I shouldn't have missed this one. Bridge under troubled water. Yeah, that's a great song. Yep. So takes. And unfortunately, I thought that this is winning. And it actually does boil down to this big question of, do you stop when you see a winning line? And that's actually an important question. Do you stop when you think that that is winning? So I thought that here, takes, here, e6, and I'm winning. And it turns out I'm not. So if I would have stopped, and that's what I should have done, I would have found that, okay, of course I should have played rook d7, takes, rook f7, and rook g7, and I'm just up 50 pawns, probably 3-0. So Honestly, you should never stop when you find one winning line because you can't ever be sure. Now, some people go psycho about this and say, but what if none of this is winning and I have to find the 10th winning line? Now, the human brain can't really work that way. It just doesn't work like that. Like, you can say that, okay, I think 3, 4 lines are winning here, and I don't believe in the other ones. But you can't really use your brain without believing it. For some reason that doesn't really work, or I haven't heard from anyone who thinks so. So it actually took, yeah, this would have been much better. And it's a shame. That would have been 3-0 with many games to go. Would have been 3-0, but okay. Um, this was probably a mistake on my part. King takes, rook takes, king g8, e6. And I thought that, hey, I am going to win. Rook d8 is coming. What is there to see here? Yeah, but Callister, the thing is, sometimes you're sure that the other line is winning. And that's kind of the big question. Oftentimes you believe firmly that that is just the winner. Why would you look for something more if that one is winning? However, this is not winning. What's the general advice on this topic? There's no general advice, I don't think, because chess is an objective game. Go here. I think you do run into some checks later on. F8. I don't like king f8 looks a little dodgy. Yeah, look deeper. Yep, bishop f6. And sadly, I just realized if I go here, takes, can't take there because, ha, check, and you lose the game. So then I had to scramble for a draw. And it only happened for I don't know what reason. This is pretty sure this is lost. Yeah, it's just losing. But for some reason, he panicked a little bit and just fell into the repetition. Still have some sort of play, but not much. And he, for some reason, fell straight into the repetition of king c6, king d5. But okay, I'm curious though, if in this position, what was the best? So queen b6 is the best move. Takes, takes, bishop c6. Ah, so should have taken on e5, which is not a human move. Because rook e1 and you feel that everything's hanging, what's the upside? There's this cool, calm castles. And if takes, then there's knight d7 just defending that bishop. Thank you for the follow, Emirat. And after rook e5, we have roughly even position. So here, takes. Yeah, as I said, this should have been the winner. Takes. King g8, e6. Also here, I felt that this should be fine. b4 takes. This is the right color. In here. I have rook h7, I keep checking. Wow. That's a nice tactical trick. Check, check, and you can't come out because you've got to defend the rook. a6, a4, g5. So I have some drawing chances. Yeah, so in this sense, this was a bad moment. That draw kind of stopped the flow of the situation. I'm still up by 2 points, but Could have been better. Could have been better. Okay. So this is the other game. Oh, wait a second. Yep. D4, C5. Just trying to get a position. D5, knight F6, D6. And white is obviously better. White has more space, but it's not that typical position that Kamsky usually gets. Here, and probably bishop b5 check is the best move. Just to go very positional. And if bishop d7, then just bishop e2, and this bishop is misplaced on d7. Probably that's good as well, Persian. Bishop e2, castle, castle, knight a6, just getting my knight ready. So there's two ways of playing this position. One is to go this banco way or e6. There's no such a thing as a bad banco with an extra pawn. And that's a good banco. Knight c7, e6. I'm trying to undermine the center. Bishop f3, and I think here I made a good choice. I think here I made the right choice. Bad for white, yes, bishop stars. Again, Kamsky is trying to put the massage on me with knight c4 and torture this pawn, go bishop f4 and put pressure there. So we don't want any of that. Don't want any of that. So I did play e5. And in that case, this bishop is stupid on f3. If I take, then I do get into that box that I don't want to. I will be very passive and likely just go down. But with e5, this bishop is misplaced and your knights are not ideally placed either. Knight c4, knight e8, no bishop g5 stuff, and I can get f5 in, which is an ideal position. Subash, thank you for the follow. Rook b1, and it is not a mystery what Kamsky is trying to play next. He's trying to play b4. We need to stop that one. And knight a6. And we sort of got a King's Indian position with the pawn on c2, which means he has very nice knights. However, not a straightforward way to play. And if you're familiar with the King's Indian, and if you're not, here's a link to some King's Indian material, which I created. So check this one out. D Foxes, thank you for the follow. Knight b5, h6, preparing f5. c3, f5. And yes, I'm a little passive, but these knights doesn't really do that much. Yeah, they're just like pretty, but it's not that important. ef. And this was probably a subconscious decision, but I decided to take with the bishop. Usually you take with the pawn. However, if you take with the pawn, bishop h5, and you lose this pawn there on d6, if you lose the d6 pawn, you lose the game. That's not good. Reason you don't play a5, because strategically, this looks very dodgy. Might be good, but just doesn't feel right. Your queen side will be a mess. You might also lose that important c8 bishop. Knight a6, h6, f5, fef, gf, there's bishop h5 and there's problems. Bishop f5, knight c7. So this knight is not that good, so I'm ready to exchange it. It's not that bad. It becomes an issue if white gets bishop h5 Berlin chess. Knight c7, queen c7. I want my queen on the 7th. bishop e2, knight f6. Now if I go g5, probably he can go bishop d3, and whoever gets the control of the e4 square is better. So here it is white who's better. Knight f6. And I'm almost ready to have enough control over that square. However, Kamsky's next move fights back. Channel your inner Kamsky. Yeah, a5 doesn't really do that much, Rishabhan. Played f4, which is a good move. If I take, then again is the same sad position where you have to deal with this d6 pawn. And probably you're just going to get tortured in this type of position. I said e4, no way. And here he made a mistake. I think he was dominating, or suddenly got dominating. But sometimes I feel that he just doesn't go for the most aggressive moves. He should have gone g4. Just kicking out this bishop. Take care, Rishadan. Thank you for the cheers. So g4, kicking out my bishop, and I would be extremely passive, and eventually I might be just squashed on the king side. But for one reason or another, he didn't go that way. He went bishop e3. I immediately stopped that idea. Also, sometimes I have knight g4. Stops that. Rook d8, b4. Now here I just realized that I've missed a good idea. Black actually has a very nice move here, which I completely overlooked. I don't know how. I really shouldn't have been overlooking such a thing. Yeah, I played something like b6, Nick Saliba, but there's just something much better than that. And that was queen f7. And now the d5 is falling. You can't really do this because takes knight e3. And probably that's the thing that we both missed. That actually this d5 pawn is weak. I assume that it's well defended. There's nothing going on over there. And that's not a big deal. So I played b6 myself. Queen d2. Queen f7 here. And again, I missed this idea. It's black to move and win. But again, so we're talking about moves that win. But once you don't see it, why would you see it the second time? That's kind of the way humans work. Yamcho, thank you for following. Yep, so CB, and there's knight d5. The big idea is the following. That is hanging in the end. So even if you take my knight, at the end the rook is hanging. If you don't, then I just take your bishop and up a pawn. But we both missed that. Play bishop h6, a5, queen c7. So I'm trying to just hold the fort together. AB, rook a6, knight d7, rook here, bishop g7. So no longer did it do much, bringing the bishop back. Here, queen b8, bc, and now I played knight c5. When did I play it? Just roughly an hour ago. It's a 10-game match. Knight c5, and he played a move which makes some sense, but I think it's just too deep. Just too deep. He took on g7, which is definitely counterplay for him, but I'm not sure if it is any sorts of an advantage. Takes b1, knight d3. One thing for sure, I can't just wait around. It's true, if he starts just crawling on in into my position, I will be in trouble. So I played actively with knight d3, takes, queen c7, rook c6, queen e7, bishop d4, and here comes the big question, where to put the king. And again, I was wondering what to do. And to be honest with you, wasn't sure. Wasn't sure at all. And whenever you're thinking about where to put the king, you're wondering, hey, which is the most likely check that will be very brutal? So I see g8 in case of h file opens up. Well, if king h6, if you don't trust king h6, don't play king h6. It's still a possibility, even though it is probably not a good one. So king h7 won. I did go king g8. The reason is the following. I kind of anticipated some attacks on this side of the board. And if that comes, I immediately have to react. The reason why I played king g8, so there's no rook a7 immediately hitting me, so I've got an extra time that I can spend. Queen e3, rook f7, just over defending the 7th. Queen g3, king h7. Now I'm okay with this, jumping out of bishop h5 ideas. Knight e3, rook g8, making sure there's no funny business. I mean, obviously I'm going to take with the rook, but you never know. That rook will be useful on the g file. Queen g5, takes, knight f4, bishop f1, and I'm getting my guys in. Here, rook here, and checkmate. That was the sad end. There's rook d8, rook h8, and it's mate. So, rook d8, of course he played it. But, surprisingly, I have this nice little intermezzo check, and then the bishop is falling. So that knight on e2 has the last laugh. There's this check. Here, takes, and already his situation is just not enviable. Probably rook e1 is better, if I'm thinking about it. But he had 6 seconds, so it was likely that this game was over anyways. Here, just activating my folks. The e-pawn is running. If you go here, I just promote and queen, and it's game over. That means was pretty good score for me at that moment. I think this was the 3rd win against Kamsky. So here he flagged, but I mean, this threat is still very difficult to deal with. So, here is game leading 3.5. You're almost at halfway in the 10-game match. So I did go e4 yet again. c5. So this time he kind of ditches the c5 ways of playing. Knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, d4, takes. And we get into a dragon. Now he doesn't go for the main line. Doesn't go d6, f3. It's already well known that it's a little dodgy for black. So he goes queen a5. The point is, you can't really go play positionally, because if queen d2, there's knight g4. Actually, queen d2, there's knight e4. Takes, and queen takes c3. This is very good position for black. But I was familiar with that, so castled. And I'm playing this with a slower way of playing. Castles, knight b3, queen e2. And I think this was bad. I really should have gone back. I allowed this knight e5, knight g4 idea, which is annoying. Here, f4, d6, a3. He still should have tried a bit harder, but he was very happy with this hedgehog setup. Rook e1, bishop d3, e6. So objectively, this position is fairly even. But it's a tense position with lots of pieces on the board. I'm still up with many wins in this match. So I was trying to go for more. h3, queen e7, queen f2, just going queen g3, just eyeing his king. Knight d7, queen g3, a6, d5, bishop d2. And it's time to go. f5. Now f5 is a strategically risky move. It's either really good or really bad. However, if I wait too long, Kamsky would go play at b4, ab knight b4, and I would be just struggling. So f5 is good. Knight e5, bishop g5, bishop f6. And here I bluffed, but it was a terrible bluff. Played bishop h6, bishop h4, and now this is falling, queen e3. And Kamsky just doesn't take it. But he definitely should have. And even though I have this dark squared bishop, it turns out it's not that much for white. But he refuses. Rook d1, now I'm not giving the exchange. Second time. ef. Question, should I take on f5? Chat, what do you think? Should I take on f5? So if I take on f5, problem is everything opens up on me. And I didn't want that. So I said, take my pawn. I'm just going to bring in some reinforcements. Knight takes d3, cd, queen e7. And if I'm just waiting, sitting around, this is just going to be a positional bust. So, had to do what you've got to do. I did what I had to do, that is. That's what I'm trying to say there. So went all in. Knight takes f5. Why did I sack here? Because if I wait, I just don't have enough time to survive it. gf, rook f5. And here I think Kamsky probably underestimated the attack. It's not a big attack. It should be easily defendable. However, he didn't want to go king h8, which I think would have been the best here, and something like f6. Just holding it in together. Or maybe there's queen f4 though. f4? g5. I mean, I think this is still on the verge of winning for Kamsky. Hello, let's take a look. King h8. No, I'm surprised. I thought that this is bad, or at least, I mean, I did have a peek before, but the computer says that this is still a big attack. f6. Rook 5 f4. I mean, if I can get in there, then as you can see, it drops and my attack is just decisive. So maybe it's not as clear as I thought. I mean, knight e5 was still fine by Kamsky. Knight f8. Knight f8. It's the same idea. So he went knight e5, rook f1. So once you said you're going all in, you've got to go all in. So no more knight jumps. Rook f7 will be happening. Queen e6, queen f4. Just come in closer, bothering that bishop and hoping for some nasty little checks on the side. Wonder if there's anything going on. Yeah, the computer is still not impressed. Could maybe go d4, knight g6, d5. Oh, and I could take. It's maybe not that bad. Maybe I'm underselling my attack. But I wasn't that optimistic, to be honest with you. Wasn't that optimistic because Black has two rooks, relatively safe king. Wasn't sure about it at all. He played queen f4, bishop d8, and I think bishop d8 is the move that sort of brings me back to life. Bishop d8. I played h4. Maybe I should have played bishop g5 instead. Whoa. So bishop d8 is best move. Wow. These moves. Duvjit. Thank you for following. Sorry if I butchered your name. So bishop d8. And I'm kind of shocked. It was 3 plus 0. I went for h4. Just trying to take away this square. And probably he should have gone king h8. And now he's very close to winning, as knight g6 is going to hit my queen in due time. It is indeed the anti-tilt machine. Queen g6, bishop g5, and suddenly it's getting edgy because rook g5 is coming. And probably here he felt the pressure. I guess king h8. But the king h8 I can take. Wonder if I can go rook g5. I mean, I have this nice little idea of rook g8, of course. Thank you for the follow, Karpovsky. h5. Okay, so here now it's like a big mess. Just a big mess. Queen e6, d4, knight d3, queen g3 takes d5. But it's very hard to see any of these stuff. Rook f7 is coming in. Looks dangerous. Yeah, that's a nice trick. Can't take because queen g7 mate. Yeah, that's what I should have tried. It's h5. Interesting. So actually this attack isn't as small as I thought it was. And here he makes a big mistake. Rook e6 was a terrible blunder by Kamsky. But probably he was under some pressure here. He didn't like Then I'm coming with d4, and these rooks were, as we saw by the computer. So this was actually playable for me, even though if objectively is not that good. So let's win it. Let's win it, people. And worry not. After this game, Kamsky will start his rocket. Yep. Just takes, rook g5, and now it's winning. h6, rook g3. So I'm not in rush to take it. I'm just waiting for a better moment just to go d4, d5. Now, this is one of those other questions in chess. Now, like the rest is just a win because I'm up a queen. Often, like, people shame others that they don't take queens immediately. Sometimes it's objectively better. So, you're not obliged to take stuff. Sometimes you want to take it, or sometimes you don't want to take it. It really depends. And then on etc. etc. Just sacked, and 98 took everything. Queen takes d6, and here the rook g5, d5. Kamsky resigned. So next game, Kamsky starts his winning streak. Wrong one, this game. And this was pretty good. Good play by Kamsky. Kamsky now starts to roll, really roll. Goes e4, g6. He does the same line, but now he shows some very nice positional play. Same thing, de, which I was surprised to see. Probably he's not afraid of getting an endgame. So at the moment, I think I have 4.5. Yeah, scored 4.5, half out of 5 games. So I'm leading heftily with this game to start. So 5 more games. de, knight e5. I think this is fine. Bishop e5. I didn't want this endgame. This is rather tankless. You have a terrible bishop. But maybe I should have gone this way anyways. And go king e7, bishop e6, and try to hold this one. Bishop e5, knight d2, bishop g7, bishop c4, h6, rook e1, knight c6 here. And knight e5 is probably a bad move on my part, because I'm getting into an endgame where I will be just miserable. Probably should have gone king h7, f5, and tried to meddle here. Wonder what the computer says. Yeah, and I'm slightly worse, but the position should be roughly tenable. However, I went knight e5, and now he gets all his anger out with this. I can't take, unfortunately, because bishop h6. Here, queen e7, queen b3, a4, king h7. I think this was not a good move. Maybe I should have tried b6, king h7. But here comes Kamsky's next move, and it's very good. And maybe I'm very complimentary with Kamsky's next move. But to be honest with you, I think what he played is beautiful. I knew that's coming. I was expecting it, and I think it was just really good. Karpovsky's saying, I was watching his broadcast, Kamsky's, and Kamsky said back then, I will take this guy seriously. That's sweet. That's sweet. a5. a5 is a decent move, but it doesn't do that much damage. Kamsky's next move just puts a big grip on the whole position, and it's just going to be pain. it is kind of the same direction Persian as a5. So it is a restrictive idea. Note that most of my guys are kind of suffering. By the way, f5 is not really a big threat. There's always f3, and I just don't have pieces left to attack with. And yeah, the big move is queen b4. And that's a brilliant move by Kamsky. The point is the following. Bishop c5 is coming, b5 is coming. I'm totally paralyzed. If I play b6, then a5 can't show up, b5. Bishop moves away, that's a target. This is a target. I can't move my pawn. I'm totally paralyzed. So I didn't want to do that. I played rook e8, take rook d1, b6. So I'm trying to hold it together, but then I'm just running out of moves. Queen e7, rook d6, rook d1, and very soon I'm going to make a mistake here and I'll play this terrible h5 move, which is losing. Try to move and win. It's still pretty. But I think already this position was very bad. Because I don't have a move and strategically is lost. Yep. Was correct that this is just strategically losing. Yep, just bishop g5, rook c7, and bishop d8. That rook is trapped, which is pretty. Very, very pretty. Probably from this match, this was Kamsky's highest moment. I think this was his prettiest game, with queen b4 being such an MVP move. And now he starts rolling with his games. Okay. e4, e5, we do the same thing. d3, h3, bishop e6, bishop b3, knight e7. Now knight e7 is a good move. I kind of like that move. Also, he's kind of... Now, I wasn't streaming, Krishna. Yeah, it was a very nice play with a static center, yeah. Knight e7 is nice because Kamsky's preparing to play for f5 later. Knight e7, knight f3, h6, bishop a4. I'm still trying to get sort of a Spanish. Bishop e3, castle, queen d2, knight d4. Takes, knight d takes, ed. So the current score at this moment is 4.5, 1.5 for me. This was his first win. A very beautiful one. c5, c3. I'm building the center. Queen a5, takes, d5, castle, d, rook d8, queen e3 here. And I made a mistake. I made a mistake in this position. I should have been a bit more aggressive. My move is aggressive, but not too precise. Knight f4 makes sense, but thinking about the fact that you have a pawn majority there, it just makes sense to move your pawns. That's what I did, but I moved the wrong pawn. I moved f4, but e5 would have been better. Why? Because immediately I have this battery, setting up this queen e4 idea, and going f4, f5. And why is this better than f4? Well, when I played f4, he had f6, which is a good move, stabilizing. And I can start rolling with f5, f6. Obviously, if I would get that, I would just have a beautiful position. But after e5, you don't really have f6, because after the exchanges, you'll always have to deal with queen h7 ideas. Let's say takes, knight g3, and queen e4 is coming, knight h5, and this attack is near decisive. played f4, f6, and I was very happy with this position. However, now Kamsky really starts playing. Rook f3, I'm just trying to get in, but as it turns out, it's not strong enough. Queen a3, very nice move. In hindsight, I should have played a4, just stabilizing on the other side and then go attacking. But now he has queen a3. The problem is not that the queen is in there, but that it's paralyzing my pieces. Queen b2, king h8, and that was just one move threat, and that's the problem. Probably here I should have taken the pawn. Can't go rook d2 because queen f8. Played a4, but after bishop c4, suddenly I don't have no moves. Because the queen has to defend both of them, I have no pieces left. And then it is just agony. Here, takes, here. And basically I gave up here because I'm losing a piece, and if I take, then that rook is hanging. So if I would have played e5, I would have gotten a decent chance, but after f4, f6, and queen a3, Kamsky was in cruise control. So this is 4.5, 2.5. Third game. Flip the board. I mean, this was also a very nice attacking game. So this time we're going to take a look from Kamsky's perspective. Thank you, Zamudio, for the follow. Yeah, so he goes e4, which he did a couple of times already. e5, I played e5, I played g6 previously, but then that was the masterpiece on me by Kamsky. Wasn't happy about that one. Okay, it's much more clear if I go, because I'm playing black here. Bishop b5 plays the Spanish, as you should. a6, and then for this bishop b7 line, and d5, like a semi-martial. And here he was sinking into a thought, thinking if he should enter, and then decided not to go into these martial lines. Goes d4, takes, and compared to a normal martial, the bishop is on c8, so it could go to e6. However, in this case, my bishop is already on b7, so it's not exactly ideal. Castle, knight c3, takes. I wonder though what I should have been doing here. So takes was fine. Probably should have activated my knight. And here then just g6. I also figured that g6 should be the way, but I didn't go this knight a5, knight c4 and c5 way. Would have been better. Also, sometimes you give up the pawn. You don't care if you take that pawn, because I'll just ruin your structure. Actually, that's what the computer says as well. Like here, c5, or here. Like takes, there's always play with a bad structure on the other side with queen h4 showing up on the board. So probably knight a5, knight c4 was better. I was trying to remember the theory as he never saw this variation before. Nice. So takes, definitely knight a5, knight 8 c4 would have been better. I played queen d7, but I think queen d7 is inaccurate because I'm losing time. Yeah, it's not even in top 3. Queen d3, very nice. Bishop f6, bishop g5. You can see that every move he makes is just on the right direction. Queen d6, h4, setting up this bishop c2. I've seen this played by Jabava, this exact same way of playing. Knight e7, so I'm trying to cover these squares. But again, it seems that I should have gone knight a5 again and g6. The knight wasn't just doing good there. g6, and then probably I can hope. I can hope here. Here, play knight e7, takes, g6, queen g3, and yeah, this is already very bad. Knight f7's coming, knight e4's coming, knight f5 here, takes. I was hoping that this bishop g2 works, but it just doesn't. It's bishop g2, knight f7, takes, and knight g5, and I'm getting mated. And yeah, knight f7 is good. I can't take it because at the end of the day, this g2 bishop is falling. So here, and checkmate. It was a good attack, I felt. Kamsky deserved to give a checkmate there. He attacked really well. He deserves it. He deserves it. So it was 4.5, 3.5, and he came excruciatingly close. So next game was very important. Okay. So I went e4 yet again, and this time he goes for his con variation. Knight f3, a4. a4 is obviously not the best move, but I didn't want to get that in there. Krishna is saying, it's nice that we have Karpovsky here. We get Kamsky's perspective too. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for being here. a4, b6, and I don't like b6. It's feasible, but it's a little passive, I think. d4, c takes, and I could have taken knight d4, but felt like playing it a bit more funky. Wonder if the computer likes it. Computer wants knight takes d4, which is reasonable. Queen d4. Greta, I don't get your point there. Knight c6, queen e3, bishop c5, queen f4, queen f6. I think queen f6 was kind of giving back the favor. He saw that I'm playing some creative chess and he wanted to do the same. He doesn't have to. He can just go knight e7 and castles. Or maybe he was just worried about queen g3, bishop h6 plays. I'm not sure, but definitely feel that there's some sort of play for me. Queen f6. I didn't want to exchange queens. Yeah, queen c7 is a funny move, but I wasn't confident that this works. Played bishop d3, knight e7, queen g3. So if I manage to get e5, I'm actually trapping the queen, which is kind of cute. The queen is trapped. But I mean, it's Kamsky, he's not going to fall for this. Queen g6. And it's interesting, computers love e5 moves. However, whenever you do these pawns can become targets later on in the game, and I don't think that's perfect. So queen g6, queen h3, and I felt like, hey, I think I should keep the queens on the board. Your queen is a little bit misplaced. e5, knight h4. No, I didn't consider that one. I just went back because d5 is coming. But I could have gone this way. Here, I guess I just captured the queen. Well, some of these tricks you don't oversee. This is when I moved the queen was he said you were trying to be tricky, meaning me. Yeah, so knight h4 would have been interesting. Queen f6, queen g3, d6. And so the bishop on c5 is a blessing and a curse. It's good on c5 and it's terrible too because it can't move. It's good, it's better than on e7, but still cannot really move. f5? I guess if takes, then I get knight d5 ideas in and that'll be annoying. Also with bishop g5's coming. So it is very tricky. So Kamsky's not wrong. It is getting tricky. Queen g3, d6. And here I realized, okay, fun time is over. Probably I should be going for equality. Bishop e3 I didn't consider. Takes, takes, takes. This looks very ugly. However, I do take away some crucial squares. I didn't even consider this one. Bishop d2, knight b4, castle takes, f6. And objectively, I was pretty sure I'm worse here. However, I felt that I should have enough play. I don't think I have enough time to attack. f6. Yeah, I'm slightly worse. Rook e1 here. Bishop e3, so I'm trying to exchange. Takes. Rook d1, I'm trying to just go and double on that weakness. However, I have not much here. Knight d2, I'm going for this maneuver of knight f1, knight d3. Here, c5. And rook e1 would have been better. Yeah, one thing I noticed and was a little sad about it, after rook e2, there was rook d3, bishop c4, and I can't play that way. But here now I can go knight d3, knight d5, and at least I'm not worse. I can always take with the rook. Just get a decent grip. So rook e2 was probably a big mistake. Here. And I should be holding. Rook e2, takes. Yeah, this was a nice timing by Gata. Takes, knight c6, knight d4, rook d2. Here, and I thought I'm worse, but I had the feeling that this should be playable. Knight f5. And you've got to exchange, because in that case I can go knight d2 and take the pawn. No? Oh, just knight d6. What am I talking about? Just knight d6. Of course. Ah, knight f5. So f4, h6, here. I'm going for my escape plan, my Barbarossa. But, just ain't good. Here, back, takes. Yeah, sacrificing I think felt a little bit suspicious. Takes. I thought that I have enough pressure on the pawns, but turns out not to be true. What should I have done here? Ah, so rook a1 and just go from behind. And knight b3, I guess rook a3, and then that's hanging. So actually the computer is realizing that Kamsky is doing here. No, he's playing this very well. Here, there. I should have taken here, takes here. But now I can't run. Yeah, I felt that this should be fine for me. But I had to be more accurate. g4, and I have knight f5, g6. Then I can go in there. g4, b5, takes. Knight f5. Yeah, and I should have enough play. No, he wasn't really risking. But I felt that I should be objectively fine. Knight d5 was a mistake. Takes. Here, and I'm worse here. Takes. However, I came up with this idea of walking my king up, and that'll be the reason of my miraculous escape. King g4, obviously stopping me, because anytime you would be winning that, and my king will be up there, my g-pawn would be a source of counterplay. g6 here, rook c2. If takes bc and the king just slaloms down, I'm losing. d1, I can't do that here. Probably h5 was inaccurate. And he should have been, yeah, doing something else like knight b5, knight h6. Yeah. h5 opens it up for my king, and now it's getting tricky. g5 takes, king b4. Probably should have just taken the pawn. Here, king f7. Here, king e7. And I think at this moment it's already very, very close to even. Should have gone this way, but it's very difficult when your whole play revolves around promoting the b pawn. Here, king d7, takes, takes. Here, king c6. And now I'm just going to take all those pawns in the nick of time. Takes, king takes, and this is just a dead draw. Check, here, check, and it's a draw. So this was an important save for me. Now, the score became 5-4, but I did stop the bleeding, which was very important. So that, and now we turn up for game number 10, people. So this was the last game. Just decided to play something normal. d4, c6. Played queen b6. Now he gambled the pawn, but I didn't want to take because there's just lots and lots of play for that pawn. So just decided to develop normally. You wanted to get draw? You'll see, Persian. You'll see what I wanted. Knight f6, queen c1, g6, e3, c4, castles, knight c3, d6, h3, bishop f5. So I'm trying to get knight e4 in there. The flag bishop e2, knight e4, takes. I go knight d7, e5, and I feel I have decent counterplay in this position. Knight d2, so it's stopping that. And in hindsight, I kind of regret that I didn't play the next move. I probably should have been more aggressive. I did play rook e8 though. Well, I didn't play, so I should have played rook e8 or something and go e5, opening it up. And the position is closed. However, the king of Kamsky's is still in the middle. Here, a3, rook e8, e4, and the next move is very nice. No, e4 is definitely, when I felt e4, this cannot really be good. Hello, Clay Dog. Rosa Metrozom, thank you for the 100 cheers. My big move was e5. First off, you want to open up the position. The king is still in the center. de, knight e4. You want to open it up as quickly as possible, because the king is still 1-2 moves away from castling, and most of Kamsky's pieces are a little bit jumbled up. Knight e4, bishop e5, bishop e3. Premier Chess, thank you for following. And my next move might be a little bit dodgy, but I felt like you've got to be very aggressive here. So I played bishop d4. However, it turns out that's not the right move. Hadi, thank you for following. And the move turns out to be queen d8, which is out of this world, saying d5, d4 is coming, and you have no ways of stopping that. Bishop b2. I wonder. So then there's takes here and here, just blocking. It definitely looked very promising. But after bishop e3, suddenly everything is defended. Your pleasure. You started streaming recently. Haven't seen him in a while, but I know Gata decently well from New York. Yeah. So turns out queen d8, d5 would have been best, but how can you say no to bishop d4? In fact, the mistake here was taking on e5. I should have taken on e4 first here and then bishop d4, as there's no defenders on the e4 knight. If bishop e3, then bishop d4, and you're just too many moves away from castling. Right? Or as I know, yep. Queen c2, d5. What? I thought this is good. Queen c2, d5, c5. Still messy. The computer doesn't give like a straight up edge. b1 takes. And at the end I have d4 and that. And it's actually not the end of the deal, because takes, there's rook b4 counterpinning, but then I pin again, which is hilarious. There's no takes because I take. So I should have taken first. I did take here, bishop d4, and here Kamsky misses his big chance. Plays c5 here, and he should have played something like takes, no, bishop d3 here, I think. Yeah, bishop d3, which is out of this world. I still have play, but it's insane. You're allowing all these tricks, but it just doesn't matter. White is just going to castle. Queen b1. Wow. They do have lots of pawns even here. But he didn't go for that. He took there, f3. And it is time to roll, people. It's time to roll. Yeah, but to be honest with you, the computer might give an advantage. It's probably still very complicated. So there's a reason why Kamsky was spending so much time. Objectively, I'm not sure that black is worse. Adi anti-tilt is stopping someone from tilting. It's kind of encouraging the one who's on tilt to stop the tilt. Knight c5. Just bring in the heavy hitters. Bishop c4. If I go the other direction, there's always taking and castles. If Kamsky castles, I'm done for. So I don't have the luxury to go there. The next move is key. Stop Kamsky from castling. So if you go here, takes. Now I blocked this check, and knight c5, I can go queen takes c5 Persian. And this is bad for you. That's why you have to play knight c5 instead. d3. And now you can castle, because A, that's hanging, and also knight b3 wins the queen. Queen c3, takes, king d1, queen f2, bishop d3, rook d8, and he resigned, which I think is a little premature. After king c1, rook e3, queen g2, this is objectively losing. So that actually meant that I did win the match 6-4. Which was very nice. Very nice. In fact, I guess this was my best game of the whole match. In the beginning, I had some good chances. That chance that I had in game 3 in the close Sicilian, if I win that, then it could have been a sweep. But after that, he crawled back, and then he did put a big show, especially that queen b4 was very nice. So I think Kamsky played really well at that end segment, but then I crawled back and won the last part. I mean, that draw was important where I crawled my way into the game. Even though, to be objective, that was the moment. He was still doing great. Karpovsky, I have a question. What was his first impressions of the first few games? Talking about the close Sicilian and 1-2-3 games. And here just c3 here. Oh. Queen g2. Coming in and this king is just too soft. And having fun. That's good. So yeah, this was a very nice game and I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Also, he needs to focus. Yep. Well, sometimes you do need to focus. So it was actually a pleasure for me to play Kamsky. It was really an honor to play him. I really hope to play him in the future. Yeah, so this game I think was my best. His favorite one, I mean, his game, I think his Queen B4 one was his best. By far. So, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully, we'll see more matches in the future. With that, I am going to raid. Yeah, it was a good match. Do check him out. Also, shout out to Kamsky. Shout out to his channel. Do check him out. Brilliant player. And very insightful. Very, very insightful. So really hope you guys had fun time here. And hope to see you sometimes back in the future. Probably gonna do some lectures on the weekend as well. And maybe something else. But I'll keep that as a surprise. Alright, take care all. See you guys.